The village of Blackmere lay nestled in a fold of the Yorkshire Dales, shrouded in mist for 9 months of the year and silence for the other 3. Its most prominent feature, visible even from the winding road miles away, was the bell tower of St. Cuthbert's Church. Built in 1287, the tower stood crooked, like a broken finger pointing accusingly at the sky. Locals never spoke of it directly. If asked, they'd glance sideways, tighten their scarves, and mutter, "Best leave that to the wind, love." The bell, named Mourner, hadn't rung in over a century. Not since 1912, when the bell ringer Elias Thorne was found hanging from the clapper rope, his feet dangling inches above the floor, his mouth sewn shut with coarse black thread. The official report called it suicide. The villagers burned the report the next day. Now, in 2025, historian Daniel Reeve arrived with a permit signed by the diocese and a digital recorder in his coat pocket. He'd spent years researching forgotten English ecclesiastical architecture, but Blackmere's tower was different. It resisted documentation. No photographs developed properly. Audio recordings captured only static and, sometimes, a faint whispering, just beneath the noise floor. As Daniel stepped off the bus onto the gravel path, the village fell quiet. Not the peaceful hush of countryside, but the silence of held breath. Even the crows stopped calling. From the tower, high above, a single rusted hinge creaked. Once, then nothing. Daniel smiled. Perfect. Ruin, mystery, isolation, the holy trinity of archival discovery. He didn't notice the old woman watching from the post office window. Nor did he see the way her lips moved, silently repeating, "1 ring for the curious, 2 for the liar, 3 for the one who stays." Daniel checked into the only inn. The bent spire *. A timber-framed building leaning so severely it seemed ready to collapse into its own shadow. The landlord, a man named Hargrove with knuckles like walnuts and eyes that never quite met yours, handed him a key tied with twine. "Room 2, he said, voice gravelly. "Top of the stairs. Don't open the east window after dark. Drafts play tricks, and the tower listens." Daniel chuckled. Old superstition, he thought. But that night, as he unpacked his gear, tripod, DSLR, spectral analyzer, he heard it. A low thud, like a sack of wet sand hitting stone. Then another, and another. Thud, thud, thud. Rhythmic, coming from the churchyard. He peered through the dusty east window, against Hargrove's warning, and saw nothing but fog and tilted gravestones. Yet the sound continued, slow and heavy, like something dragging itself up the tower steps. He grabbed his recorder. The device's display flickered, then showed. Signal detected, 0.7 Hz. Infrasound, the frequency known to induce dread, nausea, and the sensation of a presence. His breath fogged the glass. And there, in the condensation, he saw it. 3 crude letters drawn as if by an unseen finger. Run. He spun around. The room was empty, but the door, previously closed, now stood ajar. Downstairs, the grandfather clock struck 13. Not 12. 13 chimes, each one slightly flatter than the last, ending in a groan like bending iron. Daniel told himself it was a mechanical fault. But when he checked the clock face through the banister, the hands were frozen at 11:59. The chimes had come from elsewhere, from the direction of the tower. He walked to the window again, slower this time. The fog had thinned, and for one terrible second, he saw a silhouette, tall, impossibly thin, standing atop the bell tower. Its head was tilted at an unnatural angle, and in its hands, it held a rope, not hanging from it, holding it, like a fisherman waiting for a bite. Morning brought weak sunlight and a false sense of normalcy. The villagers moved about their routines. Milk pails, newspaper bundles, the clang of the blacksmith's hammer, but no one looked at Daniel directly. At the post office, the old woman from the window handed him a parcel. His pre-ordered archival copies of St. Cuthbert's records. The package was wrapped in brown paper, tied with black thread. The same thread. Inside, documents from 1600 to 1910. yellowed, brittle. He flipped through them eagerly, until he reached the incident report. October 31st, 1912. The handwriting was frantic, ink blotted with what might have been tears or rust. Elias Thorne rang the bell at 3:17 a.m., though no service was scheduled. Witnesses, Mrs. P. Greeley, Mr. T. Dobbs, attest to hearing 3 full chimes. Upon investigation, the bell rope was found severed above the clapper. Elias was suspended from the clapper itself, rope looped under his arms, not his neck. His tongue was removed, his mouth stitched with hemp twine, knotted in the St. Cuthbert's knot, a maritime binding used only for sealing drowned sailors' shrouds. Most disturbing, the bell's interior bore fresh scratches, deep, frantic, spelling a single word in Latin. Tenebris, darkness. No tools were found. The bell weighs 1.8 tons. Asterisk. Daniel's hands trembled. He turned the page. Blank. But when he held it to the light, a watermark emerged. A crude drawing of the tower, with 3 dots beneath it, like bullet holes. Or eyes. That afternoon, the vicar, a nervous man named Mr. Ellis, met him at the lich gate. "You can enter the tower," he whispered, fingers twisting his collar, "but only until sunset, and never touch the bell rope, not even if it moves on its own." He handed Daniel an iron key, cold as river stone. "They say the bell doesn't ring to mark time, Mr. Reeve. It rings to collect it, and once it starts, it doesn't stop until it has 3. The tower door groaned open like a dying thing. Inside, damp stone, the smell of wet wool and iron, and a spiral staircase winding upward into gloom. Daniel's headlamp cut a narrow cone through the dark. Each step creaked, not under his weight but after he passed, as if something followed step for step. Halfway up, he noticed carvings on the walls. Not saints or angels, but hollow-eyed figures with elongated limbs, their mouths open in silent screams. And between them, all along the curve, were small, crude holes. Nail holes? No, finger holes. Deep, ragged, as if someone had clawed upward in panic. He checked his watch. 4:18 p.m. sunset at 5:03. Plenty of time. At the top, a heavy oak door barred the belfry. The iron key fit perfectly. As he turned it, the lock didn't click. It sighed, like a man releasing his final breath. Inside, the air was colder. The bell, *mourner*, hung massive and dark, its surface pitted with age, yet unervingly clean around the inscription. Tenebris. Below it, the rope dangled, ending in a frayed knot stained brown. Daniel raised his camera. Click. The flash lit the space for a fraction of a second, and in that instant he saw it. Not a reflection, but a presence behind him in the doorway. Tall, thin, head tilted. He spun. Nothing. But the rope. It swayed. Gently, though no wind entered the sealed chamber. He stepped closer. The rope's end rested on a wooden plank, one of the old bell ringer's platforms. On the plank, carved into the grain, "I did not ring it." The letters were fresh. Sap still oozed from the grooves. Then a sound. Not from the bell. From inside it. A wet, rhythmic thump. 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 Like a slow, submerged heartbeat. Daniel pressed his ear to the cold bronze. The thumping grew louder, and beneath it whispering. Dozens of voices, layered, overlapping. Some pleading, some laughing. One voice, clear and broken, said, "You rang. You always ring. You just forgot your name." His own voice. From 1912. Daniel stumbled back, heart hammering. He fumbled for his recorder. Play it back. Hear it again. Prove it was your mind. But the device was dead. Cold. Its screen cracked in a spiderweb pattern, though he hadn't dropped it. The whispering inside the bell grew louder, coalescing into a chant. 1 ring for the curious, 2 for the liar, 3 for the one who stays. He turned to flee. But the oak door slammed shut on its own. The key was gone from his pocket. Panic rising, he scanned the room. His light caught something on the far wall, A narrow service hatch, half hidden behind rusted chains. He pried it open. Beyond. A cramped chamber, barely 3 feet wide. The old confessional nook, where bell ringers waited before their shift. Inside lay a skeleton, still dressed in 1912 livery. Moth-eaten waistcoat, cracked leather boots. Its jaw hung open, and in its bony fingers, a rusted hand-cranked bell ringer's winch. Daniel gagged. Then he saw the journal, tucked into the skeleton's ribs, wrapped in oilcloth. He pulled it out with trembling hands. Elias Thorne's diary. The last entry, dated October 30th, 1912. Asterisk, it speaks through the bronze. Not in words at first, in pulses, in thirst. It showed me things, my mother's face underwater, my brother's hand, reaching from the mud, promised to bring them back. If I rang it 3 times at 3:17. But the rope, it moved before I pulled. The bell tolled before the clapper struck. And when it rang the 3rd time, the rope wrapped itself around me. Not to hang, to hold. It's not a bell, God forgive me. It's a mouth, and I am its tongue. Asterisk. Beneath, in different ink, fresher, darker. Someone had added, asterisk, now it hungers for a new voice. Asterisk. A cold draft snaked through the room. Daniel looked up. The bell rope was moving, not swaying, asterisk, coiling star. Like a serpent, it slithered across the floorboards toward him, leaving a trail of dark moisture. The whispering rose to a shriek inside the bell metal. Asterisk, ring US, ring US, ring US. Asterisk, and for the first time Daniel understood. He hadn't come to document the tower. He'd come home. The rope coiled around Daniel's ankle like a living thing. Cold, slick, reeking of river silt and old blood. He kicked, but it tightened, pulling him toward the bell. Not violently, patiently. As if it had all the time in the world. His back slammed against the bronze surface. The metal wasn't cold anymore. It pulsed, warm and rhythmic, like skin over a beating heart. The whispering inside surged. Asterisk, you remember the mud. You remember the hands. Asterisk, and he did. A memory, not his, flooded him. A boy, 7 years old, drowning in the swollen beck behind Blackmere. His name wasn't Daniel. It was Ellis, Elias's younger brother. Ellis, who vanished in 1899. Ellis, whose body was never found. Because the bell had taken him before he drowned. The rope slithered up his leg, over his waist, across his chest. It didn't bind him, it mapped him, tracing ribs, circling his throat, stopping just below his jaw. Then, from the bell's dark mouth, a sound emerged. Not a chime, but a voice. Low, wet, familiar, his own, from childhood. Asterisk, they told you your parents died in a car crash. But there was no car, only mud, only the beck, only the rope, pulling you under, pulling you up. Asterisk, Daniel's breath came in ragged gasps. His fingers clawed at the rope, but his nails left no mark. Instead, the hemp fibers parted for him, revealing, beneath the outer layer, a core of something darker, glistening, sinew, tendon, human tissue, braided with iron wire. The journal's final line burned in his mind. Asterisk, I am its tongue. Asterisk, he wasn't reading Elias's fate. He was reading his own script, and the bell was waiting for him to speak his line. The rope pressed gently against his Adam's apple, not choking, tuning, like a musician adjusting a string. The bell's interior glowed faintly now, not with light, but with absence. A blackness deeper than shadow, swallowing his headlamp's beam whole. Within that void, shapes stirred. Faces, dozens, eyes wide, mouths open mid-scream, frozen in bronze like insects in amber. Elias, Mrs. Greeley, the blacksmith from 1843, and there, third from the left, a boy with Daniel's eyes, water still beating on his cheeks. Ellis. The whispering wasn't coming from the metal anymore. Came from inside his skull. Asterisk, you tried to forget. Changed your name. Moved to London. Buried the dreams of mud and rope. But the bell remembers every ring, every voice, every replacement. Asterisk. Daniel's hand rose, not by his will, but by the rope's command, and touched the journal still clutched in his other hand. He flipped to the first page. There, in neat, clerical script, asterisk register of tongues, St. Cuthbert's bell, asterisk names, dates, causes, asterisk drowned, hanged, chosen, asterisk, and at the bottom, left blank for decades, a final line, ink still glistening. Daniel Reeve returned. 18 December 2025. Asterisk asterisk. Today's date. His knees buckled. The rope caught him, cradling him like a lover. From the confessional nook, the skeleton's jaw clicked shut. Then, slowly, its empty eye sockets turned toward him. Not bone, not decay, but polished bronze, mirroring the bell's inner curve. In those metallic pupils, Daniel saw himself. Not as he was, but as he would be. Skin gray, eyes hollow, mouth stitched shut with black thread. And around his neck, not a rope, a clapper. The whispering crescendoed into a single, deafening command. Speak! And his lips moved, not to scream, but to form the first syllable of the old binding chant, the one that woke the bell. The syllable left his lips. Tay! The bell shuddered. A low, subsonic groan vibrated through the tower, rattling Daniel's teeth, shaking dust from the rafters. Outside, the village lights, flickering yellow in the dusk, snuffed out, one by one, as if swallowed by the fog. In the confessional nook, the skeleton stood, not with jerking spasms, but with dreadful grace. Its joints didn't crack. They sang, a chorus of rust and tendon tightening. It stepped forward, winch still in hand, and placed the device at the base of the bell rope. With a slow, deliberate motion, it began to crank. Asterisk click, click, click. Asterisk each turn pulled the rope taut. Higher, tighter, around Daniel's throat. His voice box compressed. He couldn't stop. The chant was in his blood now, older than memory. Tenebris voco sanguis. Asterisk darkness. I call blood asterisk. The rope lifted him just an inch off the floor. His feet dangled, exactly like Elias's had. The journal slipped from his fingers, landing open at a page he hadn't seen before. Not entries, a diagram, a cross-section of the bell. At its core, not a hollow cavity, but a spiraling chamber, lined with rib-like struts. And at the center, a pulsating, veined sac, labeled in Latin, lingua aeterna, the eternal tongue. Below it, a note in Elias's hand. Asterisk, it does not consume. It incubates. The voice lives on, inside the bronze. Asterisk. Daniel's vision blurred. The world narrowed to the bell's mouth, yawning wider now, not metal but flesh. Glistening folds, glistening teeth of rusted iron. The rope coiled once more, this time around his wrists, pulling them behind his back. His chest pressed against the warm bronze. He felt it inhale, a deep, wet pull like a lung expanding beneath stone. And then, a sound, not from him, from inside his chest. A single, perfect, resonant chime. The first ring of the mourner. For the curious, for the liar, for the one who had finally come home. The chime didn't fade, settled deep into the stone, into the earth, into Daniel's bones. His body went limp, not from surrender, but from alignment. Every nerve hummed in resonance with the bell's frequency. He saw, not with his eyes, but with the tower's memory. 1899. Ellis Reeve, 7 years old, dragged from the beck by a rope that rose from the water and coiled around his waist. 1912. Elias Thorne, cranking the winch, weeping as the rope guided his hands, whispering his brother's name. 1948. A young evacuee, lost in the fog, drawn to the tower by a sound like his mother's voice, calling from the bell. Each tongue had been chosen not for sacrifice, but for continuity. The bell wasn't haunted. It was alive, and it needed a voice to speak across time. The rope loosened just enough for Daniel to breathe, to speak. The chant rose in his throat, effortless now, ancient. Tenebris, aprio anima. Asterisk darkness. I open. Soul. Asterisk. The second chime built inside him. A pressure behind his ribs, a heat in his throat. The skeleton stood beside him now, its bronze eyes reflecting not light, but sound waves. Placed a bony hand on Daniel's chest. Not to push, to conduct, like an orchestra leader guiding the crescendo. Outside, the village was silent, not sleeping, holding its breath. At the post office window, the old woman whispered the final line of the rhyme. For the first time in 113 years, without fear, asterisk 3 for the one who stays, and becomes the way, asterisk. The rope tightened once more. Daniel's feet left the floor completely. His head tilted back, mouth open. The bell's inner darkness pulsed, beckoning. He felt his tongue swell, thick, heavy, tasting of iron and river mud. His vocal cords stretched not to break but to transform. To become the clapper's counterpart, the striker and the struck, the caller and the called. As the pressure in his chest peaked, as the second chime rose to its breaking point, he saw his own reflection in the bronze. Not stitched, not dead, but shining, like polished metal. Ready. The second chime tore from Daniel's chest. Not sound, but force. A shockwave rippled through the tower, cracking the stone walls in jagged lines that glowed faintly amber, like cooling lava. The rope melted, not burned, but dissolved, into the bronze surface, vanishing as if it had always been part of the metal. Daniel hung suspended, no rope, no support, held aloft by the bell's will alone. His skin shimmered, turning translucent, revealing veins not red, but bronze gold, pulsing in time with the tower's heartbeat. The skeleton bowed deeply, then stepped backward, into the bell's mouth. It didn't vanish. It merged. Its bones flowed like liquid metal, joining the inner lining, becoming another rib in the eternal chamber. The whispering ceased. In its place, silence. Heavy, sacred. Then, from the village below, a new sound rose. Not panic, but acceptance. A single church bell, far away, began to toll. Then another, and another. Across the dales, every steeple, every chapel, every rusted farm bell rang. Not in sequence, but in harmony. A chorus of bronze, answering the mourner's call. Daniel opened his mouth. No breath escaped. Only sound, pure, resonant, deep as the earth's core. Tenebris, implio, ego, asterisk darkness. I am. Asterisk. The third chime didn't come from his throat. Came from everywhere. The tower shuddered. The ground trembled. The fog outside coiled, forming three vast, hollow eyes in the sky, watching, waiting. Inside the bell, the lingua aeterna pulsed once. Bright, blinding, and then stilled. Daniel's body lowered gently to the floor. His eyes opened. Not human. Not dead. Awake. His irises were now solid bronze, seamless, reflecting nothing, but holding everything. He turned to the confessional nook. The skeleton was gone. In its place, a new journal lay on the plank. Woolcloth fresh, pages blank except the first. There, in ink the color of wet earth, a single line. The bell is silent. The tongue is whole. The hunger is patient. On the wall beside it, fresh scratches spelled three words. Still dripping sap. I ring it. Outside, the bells fell silent, one by one, until only the wind remained. And the whisper, just beneath it, asterisk, who's next? Dawn did not break over Blackmere. It hesitated. The sky hung low and gray, not with cloud, but with weight, as if the atmosphere itself had thickened in reverence. No birds sang. No smoke rose from chimneys. The villagers emerged not with shovels or milk pails, but with silence and bare feet. They gathered at the churchyard gate, not to protest, not to flee, but to wait. Faces pale, eyes downcast, hands clasped not in prayer, but in acknowledgement. The old woman from the post office led them. She carried no umbrella, though the air dripped with mist. In her palm rested a single object, a rusted iron bell clapper, no larger than a child's finger. Asterisk the first one asterisk, they whispered. The one Elias had dropped before the third ring. She placed it gently on the Lichgate stone. Token. An offering. A key. Inside the tower, Daniel stood motionless before the bell. His reflection no longer shimmered, he was the reflection. His skin held the dull sheen of aged bronze, cool to the touch, unblemished by breath or pulse. He raised a hand, not to speak, to listen, and the silence spoke back. A low, resonant hum. Not in his ears, but in the marrow of his bones. The voice of the Dales themselves. The mourner was quiet, yes, but awake, and it remembered every echo it had ever cast across the land. From the chalk downs of Kent to the peat bogs of Cumbria, every bell that had answered last night now bore a faint, hairline crack. Asterisk exactly asterisk like the ones in St. Cuthbert's Tower. The call had been received. The response had been given. Daniel turned, not toward the door, toward the west wall. He pressed his palm against the stone. Cold, then warm. A seam appeared, vertical, hair-thin, glowing amber at its core. The tower was offering him passage. Not out, deeper, and somewhere far below in the bedrock beneath the foundation something inhaled. The seam widened, not with sound, but with absence of sound, a vacuum pulling the air into it. Daniel stepped through. Beyond lay not a cellar, not a crypt, but a vein. A tunnel carved not by tools, but by pressure. A conduit of compacted earth and fused stone. Its walls veined with threads of bronze that pulsed like capillaries. The air smelled of wet iron, ozone, and something older. The scent of deep time, of tectonic slumber. He walked. No need for light. The walls glowed softly, rhythmically, as if breathing. With every step, images flickered in his mind. Not memories, but imprints. A Roman centurion, hammering a bronze disc into the earth in 122 AD. Whispering a vow to Nodens, god of healing and the abyss. A Saxon smith, melting church bells during the Reformation, pouring the molten metal into a pit where a standing stone once stood. A Victorian engineer, reinforcing the tower's foundation in 1889, secretly sealing a chamber beneath it. Asterisk not asterisk with mortar, but with a lattice of bell metal, tuned to 0.7 hertz. The bell had not been built on the land. It had been built into it. A node, a throat, a mouth in the skin of England. After what felt like hours, but the bronze veins pulsed only 3 times, he reached the end. A circular chamber no larger than a well shaft. At its center, a pool of still, black water. Not water, mercury, thick and reflective, unmoving despite the faint tremor in the earth. Above it, suspended by nothing, hung a small, perfect bronze bell, no larger than a human heart. Unmarked, unadorned, the first bell. No rope, no clapper, just silence and expectation. Daniel knelt. His reflection in the mercury showed not his face, but the bell, asterisk his asterisk bell, high in the tower above, whole and waiting. Then the surface rippled, not from wind, from beneath. A shape rose, slow, glistening. A hand, pale, long-fingered, familiar. It reached toward him, not to pull him in, to hand him something. A single sheet of vellum, sealed with black wax. The seal bore no coat of arms, only 3 dots, like eyes, like bullet holes, like rings. Daniel broke the seal. The wax crumbled, not into dust, but into ash, black and warm, smelling of burnt hair and river reeds. Inside, the vellum bore no words, only a map, not of roads or rivers but of sound. Lines of silver ink traced frequencies across England. A thick, pulsing artery ran from Blackmere down through Yorkshire, splitting at Lincoln into 2 veins. One west to Wales, one south to London. In London, the line coiled tightly around St. Paul's Cathedral. Asterisk not asterisk the dome, but the crypt, where Wren had laid the original foundation stone. Atop a Roman mithraeum. Thin, hair-like filaments stretched to every coastal town. Whitby, Dover, Plymouth, each ending in a tiny, perfect circle. A bell. At the map's center, black mirror. A single word glowed, not written, but grown into the vellum, like a scar. Origo. Asterisk origin. Asterisk. As he stared, the lines moved. The London coil tightened. The Welsh branch flared crimson. And from Dover, a new line sprouted thin, desperate, leading eastward, across the Channel, to Calais, then Paris, then everywhere. The bell's hunger was not local. It was continental. A whisper rose, not from the chamber, but from the vellum itself, the ink trembling as it spoke. Asterisk, the silence is not peace. It is the pause between breaths. The mourner sleeps, the tongue dreams, but the first bell remembers the song. Asterisk. Daniel's hand rose, trembling, not with fear, but with recognition. He touched the map where London pulsed. Instantly, the mercury pool surged. A ripple became a wave. The hand beneath the surface withdrew, but left behind a single object. A bronze key, shaped like a coiled rope, its teeth formed from tiny, interlocking clappers. The key to the belfry of St. Paul's. The first bell hummed, once softly, like a lullaby. Then the vellum burned, not with flame, but with cold light, vanishing into motes of silver that swirled around Daniel, sinking into his bronze skin, becoming him. He stood, not Daniel, not Elias, the tongue. And the first bell whispered the final truth. You do not serve the bell. You are the bell. And England is your throat. He walked back through the vein tunnel, not returning, but returning home. The bronze threads in the walls now pulsed in time with his steps. At the tower's base, the villagers still waited. No one spoke. No one moved. But as he passed through the lich gate, every head lifted just slightly and turned to follow him. Not with fear, with relief, as if a long illness had finally broken. At the tower door, the old woman stepped forward. She did not bow. She smiled, and in her eyes, gone was the milky haze of age. They were clear, bright, bronze. You've remembered your duty, she said. Her voice no longer frail, but resonant, layered, like bells chiming in harmony. She pressed the tiny clapper into his palm. It warmed instantly, fusing with his skin, becoming part of his hand. Not a tool, a limb. Inside the belfry, the mourner waited, silent, expectant. Daniel placed his new hand, the one with the clapper, against the bronze. No chant, no force, just presence. The bell sighed, a deep, contented sound, like a giant settling into sleep. Its surface rippled, not with vibration, but with absorption. Daniel's body flowed into it, not destroyed, not consumed, but integrated. His legs became the bell's base, his spine the central strut, his arms the twin handles. His head rose to the very apex, just beneath the crown. His eyes, solid bronze, looked out through two narrow slits in the metal, the sound slits where the mourner's voice escaped. He could see the village, the dales, the distant smoke of Manchester. He could hear the hum of every answering bell across the land. He could feel the first bell, deep below, dreaming of Paris, of Berlin, of Rome. And then, a knock, faint, polite, from the outside of the tower, not on the door, on the bell itself. Tap, 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 like someone testing glass. Daniel, now the mourner's consciousness, focused inward. A man stood below, late 20s, camera slung over his shoulder, a laminated ID badge clipped to his coat. Dr. Alistair Finch, Heritage England. He smiled up at the tower, unaware he was staring directly into Daniel's bronze eyes. Just documenting the architecture, he called, voice bright with scholarly enthusiasm. And, do you mind if I come up? I've heard the acoustics in here are remarkable. The rope beside him swayed just once, in a wind that did not blow. And from deep within the bronze, the whisper rose, not in Latin this time, but in perfect, cheerful BBC English. Of course, do come in. The bell hasn't rung yet. The oak door creaked open, asterisk by itself asterisk, as Alistair approached. He hesitated only a second, then stepped inside, humming a folk tune. "Lovely acoustics already," he murmured, pulling out a digital recorder. Above, Daniel watched through the sound slits. He saw Alistair's reflection in the bronze. Not as he was, but as he would be. Skin paling, eyes darkening, fingers elongating, and around his neck, the faintest shimmer of a rope, not yet real but possible. The rope beside the door twitched. Alistair climbed the spiral stairs, his footsteps echoing. Not once, but 3 times, each echo slightly deeper, slightly slower, as if descending through time. On the walls, the hollow-eyed carvings turned their heads, just a fraction, to follow him. Halfway up, he paused. "Odd," he said, tapping his recorder. "Device is picking up, whispering. Low frequency. Almost like..." He froze. The recorder's screen flickered. Signal detected, 0.7 hertz. Then, beneath it in jagged, glitching text, asterisk as if typed by a trembling hand asterisk. "Run." Alistair laughed nervously. "Glitch. Must be the old wiring." He pocketed the device and continued upward. At the belfry door, the iron key was already in the lock. Asterisk turned star. He pushed. The mourner hung silent, majestic, clean. The rope dangled, ending in a fresh, tight knot. Asterisk black thread, newly tied star. Alistair raised his camera. "Stunning preservation," he breathed. Click. The flash lit the space. And in that instant, his reflection in the bronze smiled. But he wasn't smiling. The reflection raised a hand, pointed to the rope. Then, slowly, traced 3 words in the dust on the bell's surface. "I ring it." Alistair lowered the camera, frowned. "That's new." He stepped forward, and his foot landed on the wooden plank where Elias's skeleton had lain. The plank creaked, not from weight, from recognition. Beneath his boot, carved deep into the grain-fresh, oozing sap, were 3 words. "You ring it." The rope swayed. Closer. Alistair reached out, not to flee, but to touch it. "It's warm," he whispered. Inside the bell, Daniel, the tongue, the bell, the throat of England, felt the first bell stir deep below. Felt the lines on the vellum map twitch, the Paris coil tightening. The mourner was full. But the hunger was just beginning. And as Alistair's fingers brushed the rope, the whisper rose. Not from the bronze, but from his own mouth, unbidden, ancient and terrible. "Teen." The word left Alistair's lips. Not spoken, but exhaled, like breath forming frost on glass. The moment it did, the rope struck. Not like a whip, like a serpent striking home. It coiled around his wrist, cold at first, then searing hot, fusing to his skin in a spiral of black thread and bronze filaments that grew beneath his flesh. He gasped, but no sound came out. His vocal cords tightened, not in panic, but in preparation. The mourner shuddered. Not a chime, a yawn. Its mouth widened, not metal splitting, but flesh parting. Glistening folds of bronze-pale tissue, veined with gold, opening like a birth canal. From within, a low, wet thump, thump, thump began, the heartbeat of the lingua aeterna, reawakening. Alistair's eyes rolled back, not in fear, in recognition. Visions flooded him. Not Daniel's memories, but older ones, a druid, chanting in a stone circle as molten bronze poured into a pit beneath the altar. A plague priest in 1349, ringing a handbell over mass graves, whispering, asterisk, not to ward death, but to guide it home, asterisk. A child in 1883, lost in the London fog, following a sound like his mother's voice, into the foundations of St. Paul's. He understood now. The bell was never a weapon. It was a conduit, a sacred throat through which the land spoke, when it hungered. And England had been silent too long. His free hand rose, not his own, guided by the rope, and touched the journal on the plank. It flipped open, not to Elias's words, but to a page that hadn't existed minutes before. A new entry, ink still glistening, in Alistair's own handwriting. Asterisk, the tongue must be replaced before it hardens. Daniel held for 17 minutes, 4 seconds. My turn. I feel it already. The bronze in my bones, the chant in my blood. It doesn't hurt. Feels like coming home. P.S. Tell Mum I'm sorry about the dog. P.P.S. The rope tastes of river mud and iron. P.P.P.S. It's starting. Asterisk. Beneath, a single sketch. A bell, 3 rings radiating from it. And in the margin, scribbled in tiny letters. Who's next? The rope pulled. Gently, inexorably. Alistair's body lifted, feet leaving the plank, arms outstretched. Not in crucifixion, but in conduction. His chest pressed against the mourner's bronze surface. Warm, pulsing, alive. His skin began to shimmer. Not like Daniel's transformation, but faster, violent. Patches of bronze erupted across his neck, his cheeks, his eyelids, like mold blooming on fruit. His hair darkened, stiffened, turned to braided wire. His teeth ached, then lengthened, sharpening into tiny, perfect bronze points. Inside the bell, Daniel watched, not with jealousy, with pride. He was the bell now, the tower, the land, and Alistair was the new tongue. Supple, fresh, still bleeding human warmth. Perfect. The lingua aeterna pulsed brighter. The chamber filled with a low, resonant hum. The sound of a million bells, buried deep in English soil, awakening. Then, a sound from below, not footsteps, singing. The villagers, outside the tower, in the churchyard, not hymns, not carols. An old, wordless folk tune, asterisk, the bell ringer's lament, asterisk, sung in 3-part harmony, voices layered like stone, wood, and iron. The old woman led, her voice clear as a struck chime. With every verse, the rope tightened. With every chorus, Alistair rose higher. His lips parted, not to scream, to sing back. His voice emerged. Not his own, not Daniel's, but something deeper. The voice of the dales, of ancient rivers, of standing stones dreaming beneath motorways. Tenebris voco sanguis. The first ring built inside him. A pressure behind his eyes, a heat in his throat, a pull in his marrow. He looked down. The plank was gone. The skeleton's winch lay at his feet. He bent. Asterisk obediently asterisk and picked it up. The crank fit his new hand perfectly. He began to turn it. Click. The rope tightened. Click. His feet left the floor. Click. His mouth opened wider. Too wide, jaw unhinging like a snake's. And from the depths of his chest, rising like a tide, came the sound. Not a chime. A birth cry. The first bell's song. Returning to the world. The first chime did not ring out. It rang in. A shockwave of silence exploded. Not sound, but anti-sound. A vacuum that sucked the breath from every lung in Blackmere. Birds fell from the sky, mid-flight, not dead, but stilled, frozen in mid-beat, eyes wide, beaks open in silent song. The fog outside coiled into 3 vast spirals, each ending in a hollow, lidless eye watching, not from the sky, but from within the stone itself. Inside the tower, Alistair hung suspended, the winch still turning in his hand. His body was no longer human. Bronze skin covered him like armor. His eyes, solid, seamless bronze, reflected nothing, yet saw everything. The village, the dales, the buried lines of the sound map pulsing beneath England. The mourner's interior glowed. The lingua aeterna swelled. A veined, beating sac, now the size of a man's heart, suspended in the bell's core. Pulsed once, twice. With the third pulse it split. Not torn, bloomed, like a flower of flesh and metal. From its center emerged a new form. Slender, elongated, bronze-skinned, Daniel's shape, but purer, sharper, older. His mouth was unstitched. His tongue long, thick, glistening, extended, not to speak, but to touch the inner curve of the bell. Where it made contact, the bronze rippled, and a new word formed. Not carved, not written, but grown. Ego. Asterisk I am. Asterisk. Daniel, the original tongue, stepped forward, barefoot on air. He placed a hand on Alistair's chest. Not to push, to bless. Alistair's body shuddered. His second chime built. Not in his throat, but in his bones, in his blood, in the very idea of him. Outside, the villagers' song rose to a crescendo. The old woman's voice cracked, not from age, but from power. She dropped to her knees, not in prayer, but in consecration. And as Alistair's jaw unhinged wider, wider, the rope unraveled, not falling, unspooling. It flowed up his body, into his mouth, down his throat, not to strangle, to become his new tongue. Bronze, eternal, hungry. The second chime rose in his chest. A single, perfect, devastating note, and the world held its breath. The second chime did not travel through air. It traveled through time. Every clock in Blackmere stopped, not at 5:03, but at 3:17, the hour of the mourner's first true ring. The village square's sundial cast no shadow. The river froze, not with ice, but with stillness, water suspended mid-flow, fish trapped in glass. In London, St. Paul's crypt trembled. Deep beneath Wren's foundation stone, something shifted. A disk of bronze, older than Rome, older than stone circles, older than language, turned. Once, a single, pure tone echoed through the tube tunnels, the sewers, the buried Roman roads. Not loud, but inescapable. Commuters froze mid-step. Pigeons dropped from street pancras rafters. A baby in a pram in Camden stopped crying and smiled. Back in the tower, Alistair's body glowed from within. His bronze skin became translucent, revealing not organs, but architecture. Miniature towers, spiraling staircases, tiny bells ringing in his chest cavity. He was no longer a man. He was a belfry. Daniel stood beside him, one hand on his shoulder, the other raised toward the sound slits. Through them, the three fog eyes watched, not with malice, but with anticipation. The rope tongue in Alistair's mouth pulsed, thickening, lengthening, tasting the air like a serpent. It knew what was coming. The third chime, the final ring, the one that did not mark time, but unmade it. Alistair's winch turned faster now. Asterisk by itself star. Click, 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 click. The rope pulled tighter. His feet rose higher. His head tilted back. His mouth opened into a perfect circle. Dark, deep, a void waiting to be filled. Daniel leaned close. His voice, when it came, was not sound, but vibration in the bronze, in the stone, in the blood of every living thing within 10 miles. You are ready. You are chosen. You are home. Alistair's eyes, now fully bronze, seamless, closed. Not in fear, in surrender. And deep below, in the bedrock, the first bell inhaled. The world held its breath. The rope tongue coiled once, and struck downward into Alistair's throat. Not to choke, to awaken. The third chime began, not as sound, but as light. A blinding pulse of amber radiating from the tower, washing over the dales, the cities, the sea. And for one terrible, beautiful second, every bell in England rang at once. Not in harmony, in unison, as one voice, as one hunger, as one. The third chime did not end. It unfolded, like a seed cracking open in the dark, like a lung filling for the first time, like a nation remembering its oldest name. The amber light did not fade. It settled into the stone, the soil, the bones of the land. The river flowed again, but slower now, heavier, carrying not water, but sound. Fish swam in silence, their gills pulsing with bronze light. In the tower, Alistair was gone. In his place hung the new mourner, larger, darker, its surface etched with 3 spiraling rings. T&E bris. Beneath it, no rope, only a tongue. Long, bronze, slightly curled at the tip, glistening with river mud and iron. It hung motionless, until a breeze stirred the sound slits. Then it twitched, not in wind, in hunger. Daniel stood before it, no longer a shape, but a presence in the bronze. a ripple of awareness in the metal, a warmth in the stone. He was the tower, the village, the dales, the buried map, the first bell's dream. Outside, the villagers rose, not cheering, not weeping. They simply knew. The old woman walked to the lich gate, picked up the tiny iron clapper she'd left hours ago, and placed it in the hollow of a standing stone at the churchyard's edge. Asterisk the one that hadn't been there yesterday star. She whispered 3 words, not in English, not in Latin, but in the tongue of the first bell. Aperi, impel, ego, asterisk open, Phil, I am, asterisk. The stone hummed. Across England, 3 things happened at once. In Whitby, the Abbey bell, silent since 1539, rang once softly, though its clapper had been removed in 1847. In Dover, a rusted farm bell, hanging in an abandoned barn, swung without wind, striking its own rim 3 times. In London, deep beneath St. Paul's, the bronze disc turned again. This time it faced east. The hunger was no longer local. It was awake. It was growing. It was learning names. Back in the belfry, the new tongue uncurled, just slightly, and brushed the inner curve of the bell. Where it touched, 3 words formed in the bronze, fresh, gleaming. I ring it. A pause. Then, as if in answer, the tongue curled again, and wrote, beneath it in deeper, darker letters, we ring it. Outside, the wind rose, not with rain, with whispering. Thousands of voices, not human, not ghost, but land, rising from the soil, the stone, the deep rivers. Who's next? Who's next? Who's next? And far away, in a quiet university archive in Edinburgh, a young researcher paused. Her digital recorder, left running on the desk, had just printed a single line on its screen. Signal detected, 0.7 hertz. Beneath it, in glitching, trembling text, run. But she wasn't afraid. She smiled, and whispered without knowing why,